Hello everybody, welcome to my shop. I belong to a club in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and it's called Bay Lake Woodturners. For the meeting that's coming up in the club, they were asking for volunteers, for people that would be willing to do a demonstration for the club. And with me, I've made lots and lots and lots of pins. And pin turning is, with turning on the lathe, it is my favorite thing to do. It's what I feel I'm best at, and I have taught several members in our club with the Bay Lake Woodturners and in the Northeast Wisconsin Turners how I turn and how I do my finishes and different ideas that I have that I think work. If you check me out on YouTube, I have several videos where I talk about turning pins and finishing, but this one I want to do as best I can, kind of from start to finish. The first thing that you need to do when you turn a pin, you need to decide what you want to make your pin from, and that would be selecting whether it's going to be wood or if it's going to be acrylic, or possibly also acrylic and wood. And in this case, this particular pin that I will be doing one in a cigar style kit like this, the Big Ben cigar style, and it will look something similar to this but not exact. And the first pin I'm going to turn is going to be the cigar style pin. On your workbench, you want to take and lay out a piece of clean paper towel. Grab your pin blank, grab a marker, lay everything out. And here I've put everything out on another paper towel. I separate out the pieces, look at it, make sure that I have everything that I need when I assemble the pin. These are the barrels that go into the pin blank, and I want to lay that on the blank. Like this, and then I'm going to take and leave a little bit on the end, leave a little bit on this end, and I'm going to mark the length on the blank itself and a line here, and I'm going to take that over to my bandsaw. That's how I cut my. Some guys cut theirs on table saw, but I feel that the table saw blade causes too much waste. Your blank should be plenty long enough where it'll work, but I have this quick jig on my bandsaw. I set my cutting board. Now I have my blanks cut to the length to match the tubes. I am at my lathe, and I have my lathe set up with a chuck with 2 jaws. And then for this particular blank, I need to drill it, and with this kit it calls for a 10mm drill bit. So I have my 10mm drill bit in the tailstock of my lathe. And then simply, all I have to do, bring up my tailstock close to the piece on a slow speed, about 350 for me. I'll drill this out. Now I'll start to drill. I watch how deep I go on the quill of my tailstock. I'm going to go in about a 1/2 inch at a time. Go in about a 1/2 inch again. Go in again. What I'm watching for the drill bit to come out this end of my blank for my pin blank. And then there's the tip, and I just want to slowly advance the drill bit so I don't break out the end of the blank. I want to get a cleanest cut as possible. Pull my drill out, stop the lathe, take this out, check it, it looks good. It got a clean cut on both ends. I'll take, that was one pin blank end, and then this is the other pin blank end. Bring up my drill bit, and I'm watching for the tip of the drill to come out of the end of the blank, and there it comes. And then I want to just real slowly finish exiting that hole. There we go. Stop the lathe, take out the blank, and check it to make sure it's a clean cut. And there it is. Looks really good. That end and that end. Next, I want to take my tubes and I want to glue them into the pin blanks. And what I'm doing here is I'm ensuring that the tube's going to go in there freely. If I don't do that and I go in with, once I put the super glue on here, if it sticks and I can't finish pushing it through, then I'll end up wasting this pin blank. So seems like it's going to work pretty good. We'll take some CA glue, put on the tube. Got CA glue on there. I usually put more than I need, but that just ensures that I get a tight fit or a tight bond between the glue and the pin tube and the blank. So then I've got my pin, and I just use the end of the pin to push that in there and make sure it's in all the way. And then I'll put some glue on the other tube, pulling in and out to make sure you get it spread out pretty good. And then just take your pin and push it in, make sure it's in all the way, make sure it didn't come out the other end. That has a tendency every once in a while to happen, and if it does, then you're messed up again. Alright, once that's got the CA, take a quick spurt of an activator, do the other one. Now I want to let that set for a couple seconds, about maybe 30 seconds. That way it ensures that the CA glue is all dry, and I'm not going to get it all over my fingers, and the pen will stick to my fingers, and that's a lot of fun. It's hard to get it off. So next step, once I've got those glued in and the tubes are set in the blanks, I come to my disc sander, turn it on. I want to sand it down until the tube is the same or is flush with the pen blank. Turn off the sander. And there we go. Alright, once I've got these sanded and they're flush on the ends, I need to take it to the lathe. Now I'm showing off a little bit. When I first started, I used to use a pen mandrel like this. I used to use this one. This goes in the headstock. You put your pen kits on the rod. With that in the headstock, you bring up your tailstock with a open-ended center, and it goes over this and it holds the pen kit on the mandrel. Well, every time I use that pen mandrel, I've gone through about 5 of them. Somehow they always end up inevitably getting bent. So on YouTube I saw that woodpeckers had this one. It's all stainless steel. It's got a really heavy duty shaft. You put this in to the lathe. It'd be probably helpful if you guys saw what I was doing. Sorry about that. All right. Lights, camera. This goes into the headstock. I bring up the pen kit. I put the bushings on the mandrel. Then I bring up the other end of the mandrel, which is going to be the live center. It replaces this one that went over the old style on the pen tube. It works, but it's annoying. So then I bring up my tailstock. Tighten it up. Tighten down on this. And I'm ready to go. Now, some guys, they like to use carbide tools. This is an Easy Wood mid-size set, and it's got a carbide tool tip on the end. When I do the initial rounding, I'm a little bit old school. Ever since I've been turning pins, I've been using a roughing gouge. I sharpen it. It's high-speed steel. I bring it over, turn on my lathe wide open. Now, before I just stick this tool into the pen blank, I let it rub the bevel on the bottom. Then I bring up the back end of the tool back here until it starts to cut. Personally, for me, that's all I do is knock off the corners. Once I accomplish that, I go to my next size Easy Wood tool with a bigger cutter on the end, and then I bring it down. Now I noticed my cutter is getting a little bit dull, so I'm going to go to my other cutter. It's got a straight cutting tip on it, but it's a newer blade, so I know it'll cut a little better. Okay, now I'm just going to shape it. Use my smaller. Alright, I've got the basic shape roughed into the pin. I want to take sandpaper. I'm going to start with 220 grit. Get all the roughness out of the pin blank in the pin in the circular fashion where I was turning it. Now I want to take the same 220 paper and I want to sand it from end to end, and then I'll remove those circular scratches. Look at that. Alright, I got those circular scratches out. Now I'm going to take 320 paper. I'm going to stop the lathe, and I've got those same circular scratches going through the blank, and I want to sand those out. I know this is a bit of a tedious process, but if you want to have a nice looking pin, it's worth the work. Alright, this is looking really wonderful right now. Now we go to 400 grit sandpaper. Alright, once again, stop the lathe and then sand end to end one more time to remove those circular scratches. I'm spending just a little extra time here because my circular scratches went a little deep. Probably from the 220 grit sandpaper. The more time you spend sanding, the better looking pen you come up with. Now I'm going to take rubbing alcohol, put it on a paper towel, and I'm going to clean my blank. This way I get the sanding dust off, and I also am able to check and make sure there's no deep ugly scratches left. That looks good. I'm going to cut my speed back, bring it down to about 1500. Take a blue paper towel Scott's brand is what I use. I have the best luck with the Scott's brand. And then I'm going to take thin CA. Here I'm using Star Bond. Go over the first end of the blank. Go over the second end. Let that turn for a few seconds. And then I'm going to lightly mist it with the activator. Come back in again. Thin CA. Do each end. Use the activator. Here I'm going to stop the lathe and I'm going to check it, and if you look, you can see the ripples from putting the CA on there. So what I do now, I'm going to take 600 grit wet sandpaper and I'm going to sand those ridges out. This will take a couple of seconds to get it looking nice and smooth. You want to turn your pen back and forth so it reflects the ridges off of the light, or from the light. Alright, got that, looks good. Take my normal paper towel, wipe that off, and I got about 90% of those ridges off of there. I'm going to take my blue paper towel again, and this time I'm going to use medium CA by Star Bond. Put a drop on the paper towel, go across. Stop it. Got a couple of ridges there. Alright. The medium CA builds up the finish quicker. So once again, I'm going to come in here with the 600 grit. You can hear it's rough because it's rubbing on the ridges. Then I'm going to stop it, and I'm going to go end to end again, because that's one of the better ways to get the ridges out. Okay, there's most of the ridges out. Wipe this again with my white paper towel, and that looks really good. Now that was the medium CA. Now I'm going to go over it again with the thin, 1 or 2 more coats. Wiping really fast. Alright. Stop it. Look at it, and it's got just a couple of ridges in there now, and the way I get rid of those ridges is now I go to wet sandpaper Now I've got my wet sandpaper here. I'm going to start out with 800 grit. I'm going to do both ends of the blank. Then Take a clean paper towel, wipe it off. Go to 1000 grit. A little rough on this end still. There we go. Now it's gotten smooth. You can feel it and hear the difference. It literally sounds like sand when you first start, and then it runs smooth. And you don't feel it tugging so much on your hand. Now that one feels good. Wipe it off. We did 800, 1000, 1500. Now we're going to 2000 grit. Then we're going to wipe it off again. Then we're going to go to 2500. Nope, I'm sorry, 2000 grit. And you can barely even feel it doing anything, but trust me, it's polishing that pen. Alright, 2000 and then 2500. Alright, get rid of the wet sandpaper, dry off the pen, and now this is personal preference for me. Some people say it's overkill, but I make homemade sanding paste, and it's made with diatomaceous earth. I put that on the pen with my finger, then I take a paper towel, and I go back and forth until it's all gone off of the pen. Then I have another one here that's got different types of wax melted together. It's got carnauba and beeswax and then hard furniture polish that comes from a place in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. It's one of the hardest waxes I've ever seen, and it does a great job of polishing up, especially on acrylic. And finally, I've got a real fine polish here from Stone Polish, and it's just that final, just that stunning shine that you're looking for. And there you have it. And this is Cholla cactus and acrylic. We'll go back and get the pen. Focus. Alright. This is the nib. Live camera. There we go. I'm going to press this together now. Make sure it's lined up. And then that tip or nib is pressed in. Looks really good. And then the next piece